This video is brought to you by my supporters on Patreon. Hi guys, I'm here with a video on how I made the small little details like the buttons and the little pieces on the leg for Witch Mercy. Because there was so many of most of these pieces, especially the button pieces, I wanted to, one, not have to make all of them individually by hand out of clay, and two, I wanted them all to look exactly the same or as close to being the same as possible. So I went ahead and I made one out of clay of each. I'm using polymer clay to make these, which is an oven-baked clay, and in order to shape them, I drew out the shape or pattern that I wanted on paper and then molded on top of that to get the correct size and design that I needed. The buttons were just molded by hand, but for the triangle piece that goes on the leg, I used a variety of tools, such as a Sharpie to flatten out the clay and try to make it as even as possible all around and big enough where I could cut out the triangle shape in it using an X-Acto knife.
You've gotta know that nothing lasts forever.
For the triangle piece, I also created a second layer, top layer, whatever you want to call it, in order to get the details that you see me cutting out here.
I can't believe myself. I never thought that this would be our end, but it's nothing new. And my lover's honesty, I can push it back down if I have to. If you want me to, 'cause we can run.
Once that's done, I go ahead and bake those following the instructions that are found on the package. It varies depending on what brand of clay you're using. Next, I'm moving on to casting these. So I went ahead and covered some cardboard in wax paper, I believe it was, and then hot glued the pieces onto that because I didn't want it to slide around since I wasn't using the normal like fancy molding stuff that you see most people use. I found what was basically latex almost in the mold making area of a craft store, and it was the cheapest mold making thing they had, and that's what I used. I built a box just because I didn't know how much it would run, which it turned out not to be very much at all, and I didn't need the boxes to start with. But I didn't know that when I was building it, so I built it anyways. This isn't my favorite mold making stuff to use. I rather have this like putty clay stuff that cures fairly quickly. This is, as I mentioned earlier, really latex-like, and you have to apply it in thin coats, let it fully dry, and keep applying coats until it's thick enough. And while it was super cheap, it does have the problem of not having a nice flat base when you turn it around, which can make it trickier when trying to cast in the next step. So after a long time of waiting for the different layers to dry, the mold was finally thick enough for me to demold it, and then I just had to clean up some excess because it did kind of run under since the hot glue lifted it up just slightly. Anyways, once I cleaned up the mold and had it to where I wanted it, I sprayed in some mold release spray just to be safe because I didn't know whether the resin would stick or not, and started pouring my resin. The resin I'm using is, I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but it's a resin that is white when it cures, and it cures within like 5 minutes. It looks like plastic rather than like glass or transparent when it cures. Anyways, right there I was just adding clay around the bottom because, as I mentioned earlier, this doesn't sit flat because it's not like something you pour and can create a nice flat surface on. So I had to just stick some clay under the bottom to level it out so that when I poured the resin, everything would be even and it wouldn't be like running out of the sides and not curing in other parts of the mold. I just had to make sure the mold laid flat, basically. Now I'm casting or mixing the resin. I just follow whatever instructions are on the box, and then I pour it into the mold. This, as I mentioned, cures really quickly, so I have to work really quickly. Like, it starts to cure within minutes. Once it's fully cured, I can demold it, and then I clean it up a little bit because the mold isn't perfect. And to clean it up, I just cut off the excess and then sand it down using fine grit sandpaper. I did the same exact thing to create the earrings and the little silver rectangle button pieces that are on her sleeves. So I started off by creating the shapes that I wanted out of polymer clay and then baking that for the recommended amount of times. I used a variety of tools to sculpt them, mostly an X-Acto knife and something to smooth out any parts that need smoothing with. I also sell these earrings on my store Envy if you just don't want to make them or skip this step. They're not too expensive. I believe they're only like $8, and yeah.
So tell me now, what's left to lose if we run?
Once I bake them, I cast or create a mold just like I did the rest of the pieces, and then pour in more resin. As you can see here, I have many more molds. That is because there were so many buttons on her costume that I didn't want to have only one mold because that would have taken forever. So as I casted more, I created more molds and kept casting, and I think I ended up creating like 7 button molds or something like that, and then 1 pumpkin mold, maybe like 5 silver button molds, and then I think I only had 1 or 2 of the molds for the triangle pieces because there was only 4, so I didn't really need that many. Anyways, here you can see how fast that resin actually cures because you can see it turn white in this speed video, and this was only a couple minutes worth of clips too. And for the earrings and the silver button pieces, I cleaned them up the same way that I did all the other pieces by cutting off the excess and sanding down any parts that might have needed it. So I painted the pumpkin earrings with a mix of gold and orange acrylic paint and then sealed that.
I can't believe the night lay waste to all we'd given, but honestly, you've gotta know that this ain't living.
I also used some black oil paint to add some shadows and depths into all the little grooves on the various pieces, like the eyes and mouth and lines on the pumpkins, and then sealed that again.
and let it burn, let it burn.
It's painted and sealed. I sand off a little bit of the back section so that I have just some rough plastic, and sand that a bit too to add a bit of texture so that the back of the earrings will grip better to it. And to attach the back of the earrings, I just use contact cement, but I'm sure E6000 would have worked. I think that's the number. I forgot it there. Anyways, I'm sure that glue that a lot of people use for jewelry would work perfectly fine as well. To paint the buttons and the triangle pieces, I painted that all silver using spray paint, and then went ahead and added the gold details using gold acrylic paint. And then I sealed all that. I also added shadowing as well to any areas that needed it, any areas that were like where a raise was or that had like carved in details, using black oil paint.
Never thought that this would be our end, but it's nothing new. And my lover's honesty, I can push it back down if I have to. If you want me to, 'cause we can run, and we can run. The stars that fall all for you. So tell me now, what's left to lose if we run? If we run. If we run. Forever.
I also made the little centerpiece on her like red cape thing the same way, but I didn't have a video of it, but it was made out of clay originally, and then I casted it. Even though I only needed one of those and I probably could have just used the one that was made out of clay, I still decided to cast it because yeah, why not, right? That's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it helpful. I will be back with some more Witch Mercy building videos in the future, as well as just other cosplay making videos or cosplay related videos, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and check out future videos. Thanks for watching. Have a lovely day. Bye!